The Ferris wheel stopped without warning, leaving our small gondola swaying gently against the darkening sky. Below us, thousands of carnival lights shimmered like scattered stars, but all I could hear was the frightened breathing of the woman sitting across from me. 15 years had passed since graduation, yet in that single moment, the same girl who had once unknowingly occupied every page of my teenage dreams looked at me with the same wide eyes I had never forgotten. Before I could even think of reassuring her, fear overwhelmed her, and she instinctively climbed into my lap, wrapping her arms around me as if I were the only safe place left in the world. For a few seconds neither of us moved. The Ferris wheel creaked softly in the evening wind while distant carnival music drifted upward. Time seemed to fold in on itself. The years between high school and that moment disappeared, replaced by memories of crowded hallways, football games, unfinished conversations, and all the words I had never found the courage to say. My name is Ethan, and if someone had told my 17-year-old self that I would one day hold Lily Harper in my arms high above our hometown fair, I would have laughed. Back then she was the brightest person in every room, the kind of girl who remembered everyone's birthday, volunteered for every school event, and somehow managed to make everyone feel seen. I wasn't invisible, but I was ordinary. I worked after school repairing bicycles in my father's garage while most of my classmates planned parties and weekend trips. I admired Lily from a distance for nearly 3 years. I never expected anything to happen between us. Watching her smile was enough to brighten difficult days. The closest we ever came to friendship was sharing biology class during senior year. She always thanked me whenever I helped with group projects, and every one of those simple thank yous stayed with me far longer than they should have. Graduation came and went. Like so many young people, we promised our classmates we would all stay in touch. Life had other plans. She left for college in another state. I stayed behind after my father became ill, taking over the family repair shop to help my parents keep it alive. Months became years. Occasionally I would see pictures of Lily online traveling, smiling, building what looked like a wonderful life. I was genuinely happy for her, even though a quiet part of me wondered what might have happened if I had been braver when we were teenagers. Life has a strange way of teaching us that appearances rarely tell the whole story. My father's illness eventually improved, but not before teaching me patience and sacrifice. Running the shop wasn't glamorous, yet it became a place where neighbors gathered, children learned to ride bicycles, and elderly customers stopped by simply to talk. Somewhere along the way I realized success wasn't measured only by money. It was measured by the people who trusted you and the kindness you gave without expecting anything in return. 15 years after graduation, our class reunion was announced. I almost didn't go. Long workdays and quiet evenings had become comfortable. Reliving the past sounded unnecessary. Yet something inside me whispered that maybe closure sometimes waits where we least expect it. The reunion itself was warm and nostalgic. Faces had changed, but familiar laughter returned almost instantly. Some classmates had become doctors, teachers, artists, or parents. Others were still searching for their place in the world. Then I saw Lily standing near the refreshment table. She looked different, not because she had aged, but because life had softened the confidence she once carried so effortlessly. Her smile was still beautiful, but there was a sadness hidden behind it that only appeared when she thought no one was looking. We talked longer than either of us expected. She remembered details about me that I assumed everyone had forgotten. She asked about my parents, my shop, and even the old blue pickup truck I drove during senior year. In return she shared that her career had been successful on paper but lonely in reality. An engagement had ended 2 years earlier after she realized love couldn't survive without honesty and respect. Since then she had thrown herself into work, convincing herself she no longer needed anyone. Our conversation felt effortless, as though 15 years had been 15 days. Someone suggested everyone continue the reunion at the annual town carnival. It was a tradition that had existed long before any of us were born. Bright lights filled the evening sky while children laughed, families wandered between food stands, and music echoed across the fairgrounds. Eventually we found ourselves standing in front of the Ferris wheel. Neither of us realized how symbolic that simple decision would become. The ride began peacefully. As our gondola climbed higher, the entire town stretched beneath us. We pointed toward familiar landmarks and laughed about old teachers, embarrassing school memories, and forgotten dreams. It felt surprisingly easy to be ourselves. Then everything stopped. The Ferris wheel jolted once before becoming completely still. An announcement floated upward explaining there had been a temporary mechanical issue. The operators assured everyone they were safe and maintenance crews were already working. For most riders, it was an inconvenience. For Lily, it became something much bigger. Her breathing quickened. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. She stared downward only once before immediately closing her eyes. Only then did I realize she wasn't simply afraid of heights. She was having a panic attack. Without thinking, I reached for her hand. She tried to steady herself, but another gentle sway of the gondola overwhelmed her completely. Instinct took over. She moved closer until she was sitting in my lap, holding onto me with desperate strength, hiding her face against my shoulder as tears quietly escaped. There was nothing romantic about that moment at first. It was simply one human being trying to survive overwhelming fear while another did everything possible to help. I spoke softly, reminding her to breathe slowly. I asked her to focus on the rhythm of each breath instead of looking outside. Minute by minute her heartbeat gradually slowed. While we waited, she confessed something she had hidden for years. When she was 12, she had become trapped inside a broken elevator with her younger cousin for nearly 6 hours after a severe storm knocked out power. The experience left emotional scars that never completely healed. Small enclosed spaces rarely bothered her anymore, but being suspended high above the ground without control awakened every buried fear. She admitted she felt embarrassed because everyone always assumed she was fearless. Listening to her, I realized how many people spend their lives hiding invisible battles behind practiced smiles. I told her about caring for my father during his illness and how helpless I had often felt pretending to be stronger than I really was. Strength, I had learned, wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing kindness despite it. By the time maintenance crews restarted the Ferris wheel nearly 20 minutes later, something between us had quietly changed. She didn't rush away after we reached the ground. Instead, she looked at me with grateful eyes that seemed to carry 15 years of unspoken questions. Over the following weeks we continued meeting. Sometimes it was coffee before work. Sometimes evening walks through the town park. Sometimes helping organize community events. There were no dramatic declarations, only countless small moments that slowly built trust. I discovered that the girl I had once idealized had become an extraordinary woman shaped by disappointment, resilience, and compassion. She discovered that the quiet boy she barely noticed in high school had become someone capable of offering peace instead of excitement, stability instead of uncertainty. Neither of us needed rescuing anymore. We simply needed someone willing to stay. Months later the carnival returned to town once again. This time Lily stopped in front of the Ferris wheel. She looked at it for a long moment before smiling. Her hand found mine naturally. Together we bought 2 tickets. The fear hadn't completely disappeared. It probably never would. But courage had quietly grown larger than fear. As the wheel lifted us toward the evening sky once more, she squeezed my hand instead of hiding from the view. The sunset painted the horizon with brilliant shades of orange and gold. For the first time she looked outward instead of downward. Some victories don't make headlines. Some happen silently inside the human heart. If this story reminded you that kindness, patience, and second chances can change someone's life, I hope you'll remember its message and carry it with you. Before we reach the ending, I'd love to know your thoughts. Have you ever reunited with someone who changed your life? Share your story in the comments. A year later, our wedding guests smiled as they watched us take our first dance beneath strings of warm lights. One of our friends jokingly gifted us 2 tickets to the town Ferris wheel. Everyone laughed, including Lily. She framed those tickets instead of using them immediately. She said they represented the night she stopped running from fear and started trusting someone enough to face it together. Love didn't erase her anxiety. Time didn't erase my regrets. But together we learned something far more valuable. The strongest relationships are not built by perfect people. They are built by imperfect people who choose, every single day, to become each other's safe place. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs hope today, and thank you for spending these moments with us. Until next time, may you always believe that sometimes the ride you fear the most leads you exactly where your heart was meant to be.